Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the COASTER-net Dispatch. We've got an interesting topic here tonight. Jeff, this week you posted a story that generated some controversy online that said that Disney might be too cheap.
Yeah. Well, we posted a theme park insider story, which was kind of like a companion piece to the OC Register story. And people kind of lost their minds. Some people agreed with it. Some people disagreed with it. But apparently nobody thinks that Disney is priced correctly in Southern California.
Well, it's an interesting thing because there's multiple lenses to look through this. And when you look at Disney World, Disneyland, either one, you're talking about on average over $100 a day just to walk through the gate. Whereas you look at other parks, and you can on average pay about $50 to $60 a day on sale. Obviously, you can get them a lot cheaper, $30 a day. You can walk into Cedar Point for 2 days for $80 or whatever it is now. And then that's also discounting all of the season pass benefits, all the season pass perks. So when you look at it for Disney, yes, in comparison, Disney has the highest ticket prices for a theme park, but it was interesting what the OC Register did. They kind of gave a whole chart of how Disney compares to other forms of entertainment. And the way that they did it was they divided, how many hours someone would spend in the park and divided that out to get an hourly rate of what you're actually paying versus what you spend at other things like baseball games, movies, more expensive things like concerts and basketball games and Broadway tickets. And they got a nice little chart where they showed all of this. Now, some of this I don't understand how they got it because their chart also shows Magic Mountain as being more expensive than Disneyland, which is really hard to believe unless you're fudging the operating hours, I think, where you're taking, you're looking at how long it takes, 1 day at Magic Mountain, how long they're open. So that's how they're getting these numbers. So it's a little weird what they did there, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think it makes the point, and we have to kind of look at the lens of only buying day tickets. I know a lot of people who watch the show are season pass holders to something, but we just have to kind of think of it as a day ticket only. And they basically were like, well, it costs $100 to have a fun a day. And when we started thinking about it, it kind of costs about $100 to have fun a day, depending on at least for like live entertainment or activities for the most part. Now there's things you can go to the beach for free or for parking, or you can go to a movie and it costs less than that, but you're leaving that movie in just a few hours. But you can spend a whole day at a theme park, or you can spend a whole day skiing or going to a concert or a sporting event. And it kind of lands in that territory.
Well, and it's interesting because when you think about it, you think of like a music concert. You go see someone, it's $90. The concert's 3 hours or whatever. You're paying $30 an hour, whereas Disney, you're paying $100. You're spending at least 10 hours in the park, I would think. So that's $10 an hour. So I can do my own math. I don't need the OC Register to do the math for me, and that's obviously a better bang for my buck for more hours, less money. And you look at, and you think about all the money that you spend on things like football games and basketball games. My sister just went out to Colorado. A 1 day ski lift ticket was $150 for 1 day. So it's kind of like you put that in perspective. And yeah, Disney is competitive. And this has been the point that we've been trying to make on Uncut for some time. That theme parks, theme parks aren't competing with one another. This idea that people, that there's a very small section of people that only travel to theme parks every single year. The majority of people, theme parks are competing with other forms of entertainment, sports, movies, anything else that kids want to do. Just going to the park, like you said. So you have to keep that in mind when we're looking at this. And I think the other thing to notice too is that the Disney parks, except for maybe this year, This year has been the anomaly where they did raise all the prices. So maybe we're coming closer to equilibrium price if you understand supply and demand curves. The Disney parks usually are pretty packed, and
Yeah.
that there's no shortage of people walking through the gate.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I read it. When I read the headline, before I started diving into the article. Well, if it's undervalued, uh, you know, or if it's overpriced, why are there so many people there? If it's too
Yeah.
expensive, like why is it so packed that people are saying like you have to, plan out your trip so carefully or else you're not going to be able to get the value out of it. So, that was my first thought. And then as I started reading it and started looking at, what the author was trying to say, all of a sudden I started nodding my head in agreement. I mean, like I go to a concert, I end up spending $100 on tickets usually. I know I had a friend that just went and saw a Broadway show. Her family, they spent $100 a ticket each, to go take the whole family to the show. So
Now,
it's
I will
the same
say,
kind of thing.
I will say, I won't discount the idea that there's added cost to the Disney experience too, any theme park experience, because this is where these numbers kind of start to converge. Because you go to a concert, you go there for 3 hours, you might buy a popcorn and a Coke and call it a day. You might not buy anything for the 3 hours. You might eat at home before you leave, go to the concert, and then go back home and eat again. So you might not spend a dime at the concert outside the ticket price. Whereas if you're at Disneyland, it's very difficult to spend 10 hours in a park and not spend any other money. Almost like you'd have to leave the park and go eat somewhere cheaper, and all the restaurants around there are pretty expensive too. So there are added costs that's gonna inflate this number a little bit, especially when each hot dog's $10-12 each, at Disney World or Disneyland. So I get that there's other costs associated with this, but I think in general, I don't like paying it. I don't like paying $100 to walk into a park for one day. I tend not to, I would think. Like I really plan out my Disney trips, a little bit more frugally than I think I would anything else. Like I go to Survivor Series, I sit on the floor, drop $250 for a ticket, don't think twice about it, walk home with a chair, But when presented with an opportunity to go to Disneyland or Disney World, I'm like, I really want to go to Star Wars, but I don't want to pay that $100 ticket. So it's all up here, at some level, it's all up here and what you value and what you think is a value. And maybe honestly, I need to change what I think is a value if I think Disney's too expensive, because honestly, it's probably not.
Yeah, and I think you're assigning that value as the customer in a lot of cases, because I think there's an equivalent. Unless you're trying to be frugal, if you go to a concert, you go to the ball game or whatever, you're probably spending the same overpriced dollars on food, maybe $15 on a beer or something like that, maybe $35 on a T-shirt, just like you would at Disney.
Yeah.
Where other merch or whatever, a pennant, a glove, a poster, whatever. It is that you want at that event. I don't know what the equivalent is for skiing, but I'm sure that there's add-ons.
Yeah. And I guess everything has an opportunity cost to it too. So to sit there, it's all what you as the consumer are capable of paying. Now what's interesting too is we see the same argument being made when it comes to season passes. That we've always heard that Six Flags undersells their passes, their season passes, that they sell them for dirt cheap, get people in, upcharge them on everything else. That's how they make their money. And I think the world almost lost its collective shit when Cedar Point sent out their gold pass for $99, which blew up the world because their old season pass was more expensive and it didn't include the water park or parking on it. So now the Gold Pass has free parking, has water park access. All these people supposedly bought it, and it's creating all these attendance issues for the park. And we'll see how this plays out. I don't know, because you're talking like when everyone was complaining about the Gold Pass and them selling it for cheap and how it ruined the park. You're talking about one of the busiest times of year anyway, during Halloween weekends. Now, I know there were a few days here and there I experienced them. On like a Friday night when I said that usually Friday nights are empty at Halloween weekends. There were people there. There's no question that there were more people there. But it was also uncharacteristically excellent weather as well going on. I've been to Halloween weekends where it's absolutely miserable, raining, cold, whatever. It seemed like almost every weekend this past year for Halloween weekends, the weather was perfect. So maybe it was a perfect storm of great weather, great price, super deal, and people flocked. I'm curious to see what now happens in the actual season, to see what attendance numbers look like. I'm not altogether convinced that we're going to have this Armageddon of Cedar Point. And if they do have that, then they are absolutely underselling their pass, and they need to raise the price.
Yeah, so $100 is way too much money for Disneyland, but $100 is way too cheap for Cedar Point.
An entire season of Cedar Point, though.
Yeah, the entire season.
An entire season of Cedar Point.
I think that the fast lane that they gave away, kind of compounded on that. We talked about value a little bit, and I know that you've had discussions with Danny about fast lane and this and that, especially at Cedar Point with all the giveaways. It takes the value out of it if everybody has it, right?
Yeah.
So you see those
creates a real issue.
And the regular line, and they're both lines.
Yeah, and they're both real lines. Like the Steel Vengeance line was a legit line most of the time this year with the fast pass, or the fast lane. And it just I don't know. I think people freak out over Disney because they look at other theme parks, and it's human nature to compare products that are the same. So when I look at laundry detergent, I say, oh, this one's $15 and that one's $20. Oh, who do they think they are charging $20 when I'm going to go buy, a new DVD movie for $25 that I'm going to watch once anyway, so it's people compare similar products, and there's no question that Disney's the top of the line for experience, that when you talk about the Disney experience, you're getting the best themes, the most expensive stuff. Universal's up there too. So let's not forget Universal charges roughly the same price. And they also give very high quality experiences, more so than you're going to find in a Six Flags. That to me, it's always been, the Banana Republic versus Old Navy versus Gap thing. It's all the same company with three different, brands that all have different values. But realistically, this, to me, like when you get those three things, they're all the same. It's all pants, pants at one is pants at the other. At least with Disney, I feel like you are getting an upgraded experience with that money that you pay.
Well, I mean, the difference between one day and one season is pretty stark. I mean, I think people just don't think like, well, I'm going to go to Disney over and over and over again, or at least our viewers are thinking, I'm not going to Disney over and over and over again. But like the idea of not going back to their local park, whether that's Cedar Point or whatever they bought a season pass to, might seem crazy.
And I think at the end of the day, theme parks in general, whether it be Disney, Six Flags, Cedar Point, Cedar Fair, whatever you want, I think theme parks in general are still a pretty affordable option for people to go attend. Like, it's going to be $50 a head, but if you have a family of 5, that's $250, but that's far cheaper than going to an NFL football game or going to a Broadway show somewhere, so when it's all, once again, it's all about choosing what you're able to do. And I still think that theme parks in general are pretty affordable overall. Even when they do raise their prices, and people never want to see prices go up, but if you keep wanting, Disney's putting in $35 million rides, somebody's got to foot that bill at some point, right? So, and we'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to see this summer what happens at Cedar Point with the gold passes, and to see if the Disney parks still stay, especially Disneyland, if that still stays kind of empty, because that was kind of the whole story of last year.
Yeah, the rise of the resistance was the thing that everybody was waiting for, and now it's here. So I did see a story today that even with boarding times, the wait was 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So, if it's if it's too expensive, there wouldn't be a 90-minute line for something you had a reservation for.
Absolutely, right? So we'll keep you updated on this. Let us know what you think down below. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Jeff Goodman from Long Island, New York.
Right on, right, Warriors.